I never thought I'd become the person quietly unraveling someone's reputation in a quiet Midwestern town. One conversation at a time. Not by lying, not by spreading rumors, but by telling the truth. And the worst part, I don't feel guilty about it. Not even a little. Sometimes I wonder if that makes me a terrible person. Or if it just means I'm the only one willing to say out loud what everyone else is too polite or too afraid to admit. Because where I live, reputation is everything. Church is everything. And if you happen to be the daughter of one of the most respected elders at the biggest church in town, well, people will believe you're a saint no matter what you do behind closed doors. My husband's ex-wife was exactly that kind of person. If you asked anyone in town about her, they'd probably smile warmly and tell you how wonderful she is. They'd talk about how she runs a support group for single mothers at the church, how she works as a high school counselor, helping troubled teens, how she's a licensed therapist who has dedicated her career to helping people through trauma. On paper, she looks perfect, kind, compassionate, devout, the kind of woman people admire. But the version of her I came to know, the version I saw when my stepson came to live with us, that woman was something entirely different. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Everything started with a phone call that still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. My husband's ex had taken the kids on a vacation with her parents. They were staying at a resort several states away. My husband and I were at home when his phone rang. It was his son. His voice sounded small, shaking, terrified. He said his grandfather had beaten him. Apparently, the boy had been told to unload the entire family's luggage from the SUV by himself. When he protested, just a little, his grandfather lost his temper. The shouting got so loud that other guests at the resort actually called the police. The boy hid in the bathroom long enough to call us. I remember standing in the kitchen, watching my husband's face as he listened. The color drained from it completely. Our first instinct was to jump in the car and drive straight there, but our lawyer told us not to. Crossing state lines and taking the child could legally be considered kidnapping, so we had to wait. I can't even describe how helpless that felt, knowing he was scared, knowing we couldn't go get him, knowing we had to trust the legal system to eventually sort it out. When they finally returned home a few days later, something strange happened. His ex dropped their son off at our house, just like that. No explanation, no argument. She simply kept their daughter with her for spring break and left the boy with us. At the time, we didn't fully understand why, but within weeks, everything started making sense. The first thing we noticed was how quiet he was. Not shy quiet, heavy quiet. The kind of silence that feels like a kid carrying something too big for his shoulders. Then the truth started coming out. For 2 years, he had been hurting himself, cutting. He had even been thinking about suicide. And the worst part? His mother, Lou, she knew. And she had told him not to tell us. When we unpacked his things from the suitcase he brought over, something else caught my attention. His clothes, every single piece was too small. Not slightly tight, painfully small. This boy wore a men's medium, but every item in that suitcase was sized for large children. I remember holding up one of the shirts and asking gently, "Why are all your clothes so small?" He shrugged, wouldn't answer, changed the subject. At first, I thought maybe his mom was struggling financially, but then I remembered something. She received $2,000 every month in child support, and she lived rent-free in a house owned by her parents. So where was that money going? Because it clearly wasn't going toward her son. That weekend, we took him shopping. We bought him an entire new wardrobe, watching him try on clothes that actually fit. seeing him stare at himself in the mirror like he couldn't believe they belonged to him. I had to step outside the store because I thought I might start crying. And while all of this was happening, his grandfather, the same man who had beaten him at that resort, was still serving as a respected elder at the church. No consequences, no accountability, just Sunday sermons and polite smiles. But things somehow got worse. A few months after my stepson moved in with us, the kids casually mentioned something during dinner. Their mom had a new boyfriend. That alone wasn't strange. What was strange was what she told them about him. According to her, he had spent 15 years in prison for drug charges. My husband immediately felt uneasy. Not because someone has a past. People make mistakes. But because this man was sleeping over at the house while the kids were there. My husband contacted his ex and asked a simple question. He made it clear he wasn't trying to control her life. He just wanted the man's name and to know what the charges had been. She refused to tell him. Weeks passed. When she finally responded, she said something that still makes my jaw tighten when I remember it. She said she was prioritizing the children's safety and would not provide any more information. Safety. That word. I remember staring at my husband after he read the message out loud. Neither of us believed her, so we did what any terrified parents would do. We started looking into it ourselves, and what we discovered that summer changed everything. The day we found the truth about that man is burned into my memory. It was one of those humid afternoons, where the air feels thick and heavy. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop, while my husband paced behind me. We had spent weeks trying to figure out who this guy was. No name. No answers. Just a mother insisting she was protecting the children. Eventually, a small clue surfaced. One of the kids casually mentioned a first name. It wasn't much, but it was enough. We started searching. Court records, public databases, anything we could find. At first, nothing came up. Then I checked the state sex offender registry, and suddenly there he was. The moment his face appeared on the screen, something dropped in my stomach. Not just because he was on the registry, but because of what the record said. First-degree felony, aggravated sexual assault, convicted of violent rape. Sentence: 35 years. Time served: 18. Released only a few months before he met my husband's ex-wife. I remember staring at the screen while my heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. My husband leaned over my shoulder. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then he whispered, "No, that can't be right." But it was. Every detail was there. This wasn't some minor charge. This wasn't a teenage mistake. This was violent rape. A man who had spent nearly 2 decades in prison, and she had brought him into her home, around the kids, let him stay overnight while they were there. And when my husband asked about him, she lied. She said it was drug charges. Something inside me snapped that day. The next morning, we called our lawyer and filed for court. When she was confronted with the information, she tried to deny it. She said we were lying. She said we were trying to ruin her life. But court records don't lie, and neither does the state registry. Suddenly, the woman everyone believed was the perfect church counselor, the compassionate volunteer, the role model for struggling mothers, was exposed as someone who knowingly allowed a convicted violent rapist around her children. After that, her relationship with our stepson completely fell apart. To be honest, it had already been fragile. He hadn't visited her house in almost a year. But instead of trying to repair the relationship, she chose a different path. She started turning the kids against us, especially their sister. She told them their dad was trying to destroy her life, that we were lying, that we were manipulating them. And the most unbelievable part, she told them the rape conviction was fake, completely fabricated. I still remember the night we sat both kids at the kitchen table. They were teenagers, old enough to understand serious things. My husband quietly pulled up the registry on the laptop. He didn't yell. He didn't insult their mom. He just turned the screen toward them. "I want you to see something," he said. The room was silent while they read. His daughter looked confused at first. Then her face changed. Shock. Fear. Disbelief. Our stepson already knew something was wrong, but even he seemed stunned. I remember watching their faces and feeling this strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. Relief that they were finally seeing the truth, but heartbreak that they had to see it at all. Kids shouldn't have to verify their mother's honesty using government databases. They shouldn't have to check whether they're safe. After that night, the legal battle escalated quickly. We already had custody of our stepson. Now we were fighting for his sister, too. And that's when I started noticing something that made my blood boil. Around town, people talked about her like she was a saint. "Oh, she's such a wonderful woman. She helps so many families. She's such a strong Christian example." I'd hear it at the grocery store, at school events, at church fundraisers. Sometimes I'd smile politely and walk away, but sometimes I couldn't stop myself. One afternoon, someone said it right in front of me outside the school. "Oh, she's one of the sweetest women I know." I felt that familiar anger rising in my chest. And before I could stop myself, I said calmly, "No, she really isn't." The woman looked surprised. I continued, "She has lied repeatedly and knowingly allowed her children around a convicted rapist." The silence that followed was heavy. The woman blinked like she couldn't process what I said. Then she awkwardly excused herself and walked away. And honestly, I didn't regret it, not even a little. Another time, the school nurse asked about my stepson during a casual conversation. She said he seemed to be doing much better lately. I smiled and said therapy had helped a lot. Then she suddenly looked embarrassed. "Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. You're not his real mother." The words slipped out of my mouth before I could stop them. His real mother wouldn't know how he's doing anyway. Her eyes widened, and I knew exactly what would happen next. In a small town like ours, gossip spreads fast. My husband hates when I say things like that. He thinks it makes me look bitter. He worries it helps his ex paint herself as a victim. Sometimes he tells me I should just stay quiet. Let the courts handle everything. But every time someone praises her, every time someone calls her a wonderful Christian woman, that anger rises again because they don't know the truth. They don't know about the self-harm. They don't know about the clothes that didn't fit. They don't know about the rapist sleeping in the next room. And sometimes I wonder if staying silent would make me just as guilty as everyone else who chose not to look too closely. I never planned to become the person who speaks uncomfortable truths in quiet conversations around town. But once you know certain things, it becomes impossible to pretend you don't. People who judge me only see the surface story. The angry stepmother attacking a respected church counselor. They don't see the nights I sat on the bathroom floor outside my stepson's door because I was afraid to leave him alone too long. They don't see the therapy bills stacked on the kitchen counter. They don't see the scars on his arms he used to try to hide. They don't see how his shoulders used to tense every time someone raised their voice. Those images live in my head now, and once they exist, it's impossible to sit quietly while someone praises the person who allowed it. The custody battle for my stepdaughter is still ongoing. Cases move painfully slowly, but the evidence is growing. The courts already ruled in our favor regarding our stepson, and the situation with her boyfriend, the registered sex offender, is now part of the official record. That changed how the judge looked at things. Still, courtrooms are complicated places. Truth doesn't always move as fast as it should. Her lawyer has tried to paint me as the jealous stepmother, trying to replace the real mother. They say I'm exaggerating, trying to push her out of the kids' lives. It would almost be funny if the stakes weren't so high. The truth is, I never wanted to replace anyone. When I married my husband, I knew he had children. I expected normal co-parenting issues, awkward holidays, scheduling conflicts. What I didn't expect was discovering a teenage boy who felt so trapped he started hurting himself just to cope. What I didn't expect was uncovering lies that could have put both kids in danger. And what I definitely didn't expect was becoming the person who refuses to stay quiet about it. Sometimes I wonder if my husband is right. Maybe I should keep my mouth shut. Maybe letting the legal system handle it would be smarter. But every time I imagine doing that, something twists inside my chest because silence feels like complicity. Silence helps maintain the illusion. And that illusion is exactly what allowed things to get this bad. Small towns are strange places. Reputation spreads quickly. Truth moves slowly. People believe the version of reality that fits their expectations. A smiling church counselor who leads support groups? Of course she's a good mother. A blunt stepmother talking about abuse and lies? Of course she must be bitter. But the kids are watching. Even when they don't say it, they see who stands up for them. They see who tells the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. My stepson especially notices. He doesn't talk about it often, but sometimes I catch it in small moments, like when someone asks about his mom, and he glances at me first. Or when he quietly thanks me after I defended him. Those moments remind me why I refuse to pretend. Because the people who lived this story deserve to know someone believed them. Someone refused to rewrite reality just to keep the peace. Do I worry it makes me look bad? Sometimes. Do I worry she'll use my words to play the victim? Absolutely. But compared to everything those kids have already endured, my reputation feels like a very small price. Maybe one day the court case will end. Maybe the truth will come out in a way that forces people to see things differently. Or maybe it won't. Maybe some people will always believe the polished church version of her life. And maybe I'll always be the villain in their story. If that's the price of protecting those kids and refusing to lie about what happened, I think I can live with that. I'm still processing everything, honestly. Some days I feel confident about the choices I've made. Other days I wonder if I should have handled things differently. So I'll ask you this. If you were in my position, knowing everything I know now, would you stay silent? Or would you speak up too? Let me know what you think. And if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe.